Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
It is embarrassing, I think, because these kind of gaffes, public, in front of the world's eyes, are not what you would expect a president to be doing. So I think it really is down to whether he decides to resign. Well, that, of course, would be the cleanest solution, because that would enable Kamala Harris to step in as president. And don't forget, she can't be confirmed as a nominee. That's the interesting part. Even if she's the vice president right now, you would, if Biden withdraws, the convention will have to decide who becomes the president. There is no way to transfer his delegates to her, unless they change the rules to do that. But that would not go down well. And so you frankly would face a brokered convention, the first one in years, when you would have the delegates free to vote for who they wanted. That could be very messy. If he did step down, though, or was frankly removed under Amendment 25 of the Constitution, which says that if you're incapable, the vice president and cabinet can say you're incapable and move on, that would be neat as a solution. I mean, I probably don't think, I'm not a medical person, but I don't think he's at that stage where you could probably make that judgment and say he's obviously totally incapable. So I think it really is down to whether he decides to resign and hand over or not. And I don't think he will. I really don't. I think the Joe Biden we've seen is very solid, very convinced that he is still fit for office, very hurt by the idea he isn't, and there is some basis that polls back his belief that he's in margin of error territory. So should he really step down? Unless he sees a convincing reason, probably not, but time is running out. If I was the Democratic Party, I would be going, polls show us that almost all the other candidates we have will beat Donald Trump handsomely. You say you're a patriot, Joe Biden. Isn't the patriotic thing now to step down and say you've had a good run, make yourself a history-making person, have some say in who will replace you, whatever it is, but don't run for another 6 months, because who the heck knows what Joe Biden's going to turn up on Monday in the next debate on election day. And that just is not a sensible place for any political party to run in if they have serious doubts about their candidate.
Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President.
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Dear our friends of Ukraine.
Donald Trump is quite embarrassing as well. So, we're gearing up with not a great choice here in terms of where the US is heading. And Trump has behaved himself much better in this campaign than, say, in 2020, which was just awful. But nonetheless, he has a track record of making other kinds of sort of gaffes or situations or strange presentations. And it just seems that the days of having a president who you could look up to appear to be gone right now in American politics, and that cannot be a good thing for American politics, full stop. The problem is that Joe Biden needed a show in this conference, basically no gaffes at all. He needed to be the leader of the free world. He needed to get out there and present his credentials to continue doing that job past November, and to convince, frankly, not simply the American people, but also the world that he was up for the job. And look, he did quite well until the gaffes really, again, put this into stark comparison with, say, Donald Trump, who doesn't make those kinds of gaffes. So you had him answering a lot of questions. I mean, he did answer a lot of questions. He answered, many of them quite well. He was, quite well poised on the world stage. But then he ruined it by those two big whoppers. And you can't, it's very difficult to see how you would get Zelensky and Putin confused. He did recover from that one quickly, and everyone laughed it off. The Kamala Harris one was, in a sense, worse because he didn't recover from it. He just went on as if it hadn't happened, type thing, saying that she was Vice President Trump instead.
What concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
And I think the problem with this is that it's quite clear that his performance is deteriorating over time. And in the last 6 months to a year, it's been much worse than it was beforehand. I mean, he did have a propensity to gaffe, in general terms, but it's got much worse. And you kind of expect it every time now that he's going to make a mistake. And that's fine. You can laugh it off among friends, if it's a dinner party, whatever. It's less fine if you're looking at this and you're Putin, Xi, Kim, or Khamenei. You're looking at this and going, is this man really going to stop us from doing what we want to do? I mean, he doesn't seem to know where he is half the time. So should we not just continue with the path of disruption we've done? And that's a challenge for global security. You need to have an American president who is perceived to be strong and on the ball as much as, frankly, they are, on the ball. And that perception is key. If you don't have the perception, you encourage bad actors to believe that they will be able to get away with bad activity purely on account of confusion from their opponent.
And so our military is working. I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people.
This concludes.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You referred to Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
This concludes tonight's press conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone.
I think in a way, the other gaffe he kind of made, which he shouldn't have said, and which is not good, is that he claims that other world leaders came up to him and said, oh, we hope you win against Trump. I mean, that's not great to reveal what people are telling you in private conversations. So clearly he's turning into a bit of a liability, not simply at home, but also abroad, if he's sharing these kinds of conversations in public.
And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Well, look, I think, how can I say this without sounding too self-serving? I'm not having any of my European allies come up to me and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. You can't let this guy come forward. He'd be a disaster. He'd be a disaster. What I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the European alliance stays strong.